Okay, good afternoon, and thank you for taking time to join us for today's webinar, The Fine Art of Delegation. We hope you'll pick up some tips on utilizing skills for leadership growth and sanity. My name is Kevin Minton, and I'm the owner and CEO of Chief Executive Boards. We are located in Greenville, South Carolina, with executive peer advisory boards in multiple cities throughout the U.S., and I'll be your host today. I'd like to invite you to stay tuned for future webinars on our website, located at the bottom of this slide where my mouse is. Before we just dive straight into our main topic, you might be curious to learn more about CEBI. We are an executive peer advisory service with local and national boards located throughout the eastern and Midwest states. The purpose of Chief Executive Boards is to help CEOs, presidents, business owners share ideas and experiences, really just to avoid the pitfalls and the potholes that many have already experienced. We kind of help steer you from reinventing the wheel, so to speak. Our members receive unvarnished advice. It's in a safe and confidential environment, and it's typically, unavailable elsewhere. It's like having your own personal think tank. So a lot of CEOs, I don't know if you're in this category or not, but a lot of CEOs have a hard time sleeping at night. So we try to address the question of what keeps you up at night. So our members really avail of the advisory board service. They attend educational summits. They can have access to other CEBI members and libraries and workshops and webinars, among other things that you'll see on this slide. One thing I want to mention, if you plan to join CEBI, now's the time. We're running a limited time promotional offer, 50% off of first quarter dues if you happen to join by December the 31st. All you have to do is contact us at this telephone number or this email address, and we will be happy to provide more information about that and discuss a little bit more about Chief Executive Boards. So before we get started, really, there's a couple of housekeeping items that I'd like to mention. If you have questions, you can post your question in the question panel box on the right of your computer screen, and they'll be answered either during or after the session. The webinar is being recorded, and it's going to be made available to you to review on our website later on today or tomorrow afternoon. So let's get started with our webinar, The Fine Art of Delegation. Our guest presenter today is Ms. Sandy Blaha. She is the founder and CEO of Sandy Blaha Performance Consulting. She's a 20-year veteran specializing in helping mid-sized companies primarily align people, strategy, execution, and culture. She's worked with over 200 companies developing and coaching executive leaders, and she's facilitated strategic retreats as well. She's also assisted with realigning management teams, also written dozens of articles and white papers which you can avail. She's a regular speaker and coach, and she conducts strategic leadership workshops with CEBI members. Today, you'll learn the essential delegation behaviors, career enhancers and derailers, the delegation framework, and we'll hope you'll pick up some tips essential to achieving the art of delegation. This webinar is probably going to last approximately about 40 minutes, and we'll take a few minutes at the end for questions. Contact details for Sandy and I both will be listed at the end of the presentation. And at this point in time, I'll turn the webinar over to our featured presenter, Ms. Sandy Blaha. Sandy, take it away.
Right. Well, thanks, Kevin. I'm happy to be here today to discuss a really important topic, delegation. So if you want to eliminate the days when you feel like your hair is on fire, you might want to look at your delegation skills. We'd like you to feel good about going on vacation because you've cross-trained an assistant or an understudy. What's the most important aspect, I believe, of delegation is being able to get to your most important tasks and not just your urgent tasks. You want to be able to accomplish your vision and value building projects, your long-term goals. And the reason I'm passionate about this, and I've been teaching it for more than 10 years now, is that it tends to be one of the #1 roadblocks to success for managers and leaders. So what I'm presenting today is a segment of a half-day workshop on delegation authority sharing as part of a bigger program, the Leadership Mindset. If I were to take one of your teams through this training, information would be broader and deeper and not truncated as it is today. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with a thinking exercise. I'd like you to think about your 2 or 3 biggest challenges in growing your business, growing your top line and your bottom line. So just take a few seconds, maybe on a piece of paper on your desk or wherever you're listening, jot down what are your 2 or 3 biggest challenges for you right now in growing your business. So take another 15 seconds and think about what's the biggest challenge you have in attracting and retaining top talent. What are your biggest challenges in attracting and retaining top talent? Well, I'm here to tell you that these 2 questions are related, okay? One of the links between growth of your business and retaining top talent is the effectiveness of delegation. Delegation, when done well, allows for strategic learning, job structure, and growth opportunities for your high potential and up-and-comers. Retention and attraction of top talent has everything to do with your delegation skills and your company's learning environment. And that's important because the data on top performers tells us that top performers outperform their counterparts by as much as 400%. So what are some of those essential delegation behaviors that you need to learn? Perhaps you already have some of these, but we want to start with transparency. What do I mean by that? The WIIFM stands for what's in it for me. That's why any of us move and make change, do something differently. So when you're delegating, you need to give people the context or the why behind the actual delegated task. It's very important to taking on the second skill set, and I find this is one of our very weakest ones, is clearly stating what the expectations are. And what we mean here is okay, just checking the audio. Is everything okay? I don't know how long it was gone.
Yes, we have you back now, Sandy.
Okay, was I gone long?
About 10 seconds.
Okay, great, thank you. Sorry about that. So, clear expectations. What are the desired results? What would the outcome look like if you were successful? And accountability, that's another one that is really essential in delegating. Holding people to account. No one does their best work unless you hold them to account. Most of us have had the luxury of having an uncle or a grandparent or a coach or someone in our lives who really held the standard high. So in order to do that, you need to let people know what decision authority they have, what time frame they're expected to perform in, what resources they have and you can't provide. There needs to be some type of quality control, because just because you've delegated doesn't mean you've let go of the quality control. There still has to be some checking, not micromanagement, checking. And there may be some consequences and also rewards for success. And finally, commitments. You need to have clear yeses and nos. Has the person made a commitment to fulfill the responsibility? And that builds trust and opportunity. So if you think of those who have been best at delegation that you've known in your life, you might recognize some of these activities, these behaviors. One of the reasons we don't delegate is because we tell ourselves stories, and the story that we tell ourselves is it will take too long. It would be it's faster for me to do it myself. But it might not be such a happy faster if I do it myself as your 58-hour work this week, or your 60th hour, or your 70th hour. So it does slow you down. It does slow you down to delegate the first time and the second time. And by about the third time and going forward, your investment in time decreases, which frees you up to do the important and not just the urgent. And of course, you need to choose the appropriate person to delegate to, one with skills, ambition, and perhaps the person holding the appropriate role. And of course, it has to go hand in hand with coaching, teaching, and training the other person. So as I said, the primary hurdle that most of us go through is this conversation we have that it's faster if I do it myself. And the question I have to ask you is, what's wrong with this argument? The thing that's wrong with this argument is you stay stuck. You might say to yourself, well, if there's anybody with the skill, well, that's where the training and development comes in. First, you're going to choose someone who you think has the appropriate motivation and capability, and then you have to spend a little bit of time training them. I've actually heard some people say this. It's not me, but I don't want to go on vacation. People say, I love working. And, you know, I would say that person is not promotable. If people can't take time off to recreate and to relax, which that means that they haven't really cross-trained anyone else to help them. I think at the very pit of this issue is a fear of no longer being the expert. So we've often seen technical leaders really struggle with delegation. They're very smart people, and they may be micromanagers if they do delegate, because they're really focused on someone else doing what they would do exactly as or how they would do it. And what I need to say is that intelligence doesn't necessarily equate to management abilities. Now, one hurdle that I didn't put up here is delegating and then taking it back because the person didn't do it exactly as you wanted. And the result of that, if you've ever done this with your kids, you know the result of that. The message that people get is you don't trust them, and they can't possibly do it as well as you do, especially if you know how to do it better than they do already. So it is a learning experience, okay? There's consequences to just taking it back. You could take it back if there was urgency, but what would be better is if you sat down with a person and you said, on a regular basis, and you said, here, and I gave them feedback, here's what's working, here's what's not working, why don't you try this? So I want to give you a memory device about how you can trust and let go. First of all, you don't peel off an entire roll at once, but pieces of a roll. And the memory device is this. If you're my age, this will give me my age away. If you're my age, when you played on the playground as a kid, you had something that we called monkey bars. And monkey bars are, you went hand over hand across from one end to the other. Each time as you swung forward, you had to let go of the rung behind you. And it's the same with delegation. You have to let go to some extent in order to swing forward to the activity, the next activity for you and that other person. So I just give you that as perhaps a little bit of a kinesthetic memory of what it means to trust and let go and allow someone else to do some work on your behalf. So in blue here, I have lots of stuff on this chart, but in blue, you can see the benefits of delegating. I'd like you to focus on one of these that's important to you. The one that I think about quite a bit is how do we create the time for what's important in growing our business. These are the kinds of things that CEBI members talk about in their panel discussions, in their advisory board meetings. How do we create the time for what's important? Well, that's where delegation comes in. Ask yourself, how is delegation related to this item that you chose? The reason I'm emphasizing this point to ask yourself is what I know about people is we don't change unless we clearly get the why of the change in our brain. So I want you to choose a why. What would it help you do if you got better at delegating? And you need to also think about what is your system for linking added responsibility eventually to advancement of people who take on more and more responsibility. Now, it doesn't have to happen right away. I just worked yesterday with a team, and a woman brought in the largest project that they've ever had, and this was considered her test year. Could she do that? So it's not until the end of this year that she'll actually get an opportunity for stock ownership, but she did prove herself. So these are the steps that you have gone through in your career, if you think back on your career. And you're probably, unless you're a CEO or a president of your company, you're probably not at those last two levels. But at each turn to the next level, you had to learn something. You had to be trusted, and you had to follow through on some delegated activities or roles. And so I think about this as I think about hiking in Colorado. I'm a Coloradan, and when we hike up a mountain, we hike across the path and then switch back and go up some more and switch back and go up some more. So each turn in your career, as if it was a switchback, you have something to learn to go to the next level. And it's really up to the person that's doing the delegation to be your coach and mentor and trainer. Now, a lot of people, I find, complain about 20-something. And I just have to say, if you're a boomer, get over it. Yeah, they're different than we are, but they're not different in ways that they're different in ways that I think are very positive. Many of them are entrepreneurs, and you don't want to turn off that entrepreneurial ability. They learn to be great team players because when they were in school, they had to do team projects. They're interested in self-actualization, and we'll talk to you about it. That's not something we boomers did a lot of. They want immediate feedback. I say, what's wrong with that? They want to be managed by results. That is, they want feedback loops on how they did, what worked and what didn't. Yes, that's a change in behavior. It's not something that we had as we were moving forward. Doesn't mean it's wrong. They don't want to work 70 hours a week. They want some free time, and they want mentorship. Excuse me. If you'd like to read more about that, you can read the article or the book Brazen Careerist by Penelope Trunk, and she talks about what 20-somethings think about. So delegation is not just about increasing your skills as a delegator. It's also about career satisfaction for others as they take on new responsibilities. And career planning was something that boomers didn't also have available to them for the most part. It wasn't discussed. It was just if you proved yourself and pulled yourself up by your bootstraps, maybe you'd have an opportunity. So again, I say let's get over ourselves on that one. You need to show that you're invested in employees, and they need to know that they're valued. And the best way you can do that is to talk to them about the responsibilities that you're offering them, the opportunities for learning that you're offering them. You can also use some strengths finders, or which I call assessment tools, to match a person with new responsibilities. And you're welcome to call me after this webinar if you want some more information on that. And we could spend another 3 hours on this, but I just wanted to introduce this idea that careers are linked to delegation and opportunity. What enhances careers for others? Action learning assignments, things that you delegate. Diversity of opportunity and engagement with that employee on the feedback loop. Depth of responsibility, breadth of responsibility, and the opportunity to safely fail and rebound. Most of us learn a significant amount by making mistakes, and you have to be able to trust. If the first thing you do is just grab the activity back, the person's going to say, fine, you really don't want to delegate to me. Now, here's a saying that I read years ago, and I've really kept it in mind throughout the years, and I want to share it with you. I think it's a truism. The biggest waste in business is the waste of untapped human potential. Don't let your people get pigeonholed when they're ambitious to learn more. So you need to set the stage. There has to be something in it for the other person or with them. And mutual respect and mutuality. Make it safe to learn and fail. The pieces of the activities that your role that you may be breaking off, make those small steps, not an entire role all at once, pieces of that role. Convey that you care about that individual by giving feedback about what's working and what's not working in a positive way. Search for the common needs and interests with that person, and remember to keep checking with yourself and with them. What's in it for both of us. So we've looked at effective delegation behaviors, we've looked at trust and career enhancement, and now we're adding mutuality to it. Does the person you're delegating to believe you care about their goals and interests? And do they trust your motives? Are you searching for a win-win? I'll just tell you briefly that I've worked with a woman named Mary who has been slated to be one of the next executives in a small 90-person company. And one of the things that she is struggling with is she's being told, trust us. But some of the behaviors that she's seeing are not trusting behaviors. And she's starting to wonder, is this the group of people I want to work with? You don't want your high potential employees thinking those things, because the next thing they might think about is, boy, maybe I better look for another job. If she has executive potential, where can she fulfill that? So make sure that your behaviors convey trust. And that'll be part of the next Leadership Mindset program that we're offering, and Kevin will talk about that at the end today. Now I want you to take some care with who you're delegating to. Ideally, you're choosing people you can trust, people that are ambitious and willing to learn as your delegee. Okay? I don't like that word delegee, but that's a word I think we have to use. So if they're not a team player, if they are not able to execute through others, that is, as you delegate activities to someone, they might need to have a conversation and delegate some activities as well so they could do a little bit more. If they're not open to feedback, then they're not a learner. If they lack introspection, the ability to look and see, what did I do well, what didn't I do so well. If they need to be right and go it alone, the lone wolf, that might not be the most effective person to delegate to. And the last skill set, which I didn't list, is a lack of emotional intelligence, and that can show up in all kinds of different ways. But we know that when we see these behaviors in an organization, it has an impact on the people around them, an impact on the team and the organization. So I once worked with a gentleman named Stan, and Stan was the leader of the biggest project in the office. He had the most visibility. In fact, many people thought of Stan in the community as the president of the company. The president was actually a pretty introverted person, and he was great at what he did, but people thought very highly of Stan. However, Stan had an emotional intelligence flaw. When something went wrong, he had a tendency to blame anybody else except himself, and he didn't take responsibility. So again, I say choose wisely when you're starting to delegate and get things off of your plate. Don't choose people that have any of these behaviors. And these were actually behaviors that I think came from the Center for Creative Leadership. So these are verified career derailers. So some more skill sets that you want to think about, and we're going to go forward here with skill sets from here on out, and then just one story. But you want to be able to give the big picture to the person. This is what I talked about, that context. You want to give clear expectations and what the criteria for success is. Like, it would be successful if it had X, Y, and Z. You want to make clear requests and get committed responses, and I'll talk about that more in just a second. You want to acknowledge results and success and follow through and check in with that person, okay? So when you're making clear requests, you want to making requests, you want to be clear about your expectations and be specific and measurable with time phase in the expectation. In what time frame, what would it look like? Discuss how often you're going to check in with each other, and you might even train the other person to get back with you on their progress. And if we have time, you can ask me about a reporting system that I call 5 on Friday at 5. So here's a quick illustration of a company that we're going to call H2. It's a real example, but a fictitious name. In 2005, this was their revenues and their profits. In 2007, their goal was almost double and quadruple in profit. This was actually a project that was an ownership transition. That is, stock was being sold internally to the next generation of leaders. And you can see that the intentions that were shared by this team required that the team make some changes. The team was to take over operations of the company. They were to produce 20% profit, and they wanted less turnover, so they wanted employee satisfaction, and they also wanted to become stockholders. And you saw the 2007 goals. The owner in 2005 was doing a lot of the operational things. He was not able to get to the things that were his highest value activities. In 2007, he was able to focus on business development, design leadership, and financial oversight. They happened to be an architecture firm. So you can see the difference between these lists. Here's all the operational day-to-day stuff, and here's the value building. And they actually did achieve that quadruple in profit. So remember that we have to put some specifics on the goals. And we also have to share with others what is their decision authority. And it took us a few tries at this, but there is this thing that I call the hesitation rate. People will hold back and not step into positions of authority if decision authority is confused. Because once you've given them clarity about the decision authority and you back them up, even if they make a mistake, then you can move forward and there isn't that hesitation. So this team wanted to lead and manage the office. And these were some of the things that they needed to do. They needed to supervise the employees. And the owner said, yes, you do that. I'm not going to do that anymore. The owner wanted to continue to lead design. He wanted to make sure that quality control was a shared activity that they looked at in their weekly meetings. He wanted to know about client concerns the second they came up. He wanted the team to do the scheduling. He wanted them to budget together so that eventually the team could take care of budgeting, both on projects and administrative overhead. He wanted them on a weekly basis to evaluate their success. And he wanted the team to eventually be able to allocate resources. So what's fair about this is that he was clear about what he wanted to hold on to instead of making that obscure or opaque, and he couldn't, instead of people bumping into the walls and trying to figure it out as they went along. And part of that was the training activity of when they talked together as a team. Now here's an activity. I think this is one of your most important takeaways. I suggest you do it the second you get off of the webinar today. And that is a more of and less of activity. So on your more of side, I'd like you to list, when you do this activity after the webinar, more of the things you really want to get to. As you could see in the example of the owner, Jim, he wanted more time on the things he liked to do. He was good at building value by designing space. He happened to be a hotel architect. He was also great at financial oversight, and he was the rainmaker. He needed to do more of those activities. So all those operational things came on the right-hand side. Those were the less of. And those are the activities that you're going to want to think about delegating, and who might you delegate them to. And you might just take a few activities at a time and be successful and then move on. Now also in your team meetings, you are going to want some way to keep track of what has been delegated and who is on first. What gets written down gets done, and it supports clarity, transparency, expectations, and accountability. So what task is going to whom, the task leader? Are there considerations like the client wants this, or we have to sequence the activities? One person has to do something and then another. There may be a budget of hours and time invested in this. There's a target completion date. And then you can start the next week with this task list. Did they get completed? Why or why not? And then start your next list. But this really helps people realize that you're serious about accountability. Because people don't like to be embarrassed. They want to show up and do good work for the most part. So, oops, I went too far, sorry. I don't have time to go into great depth on this, but what I want to say is another important aspect of delegation is knowing your delegee. And that is determining your role as a coach and where they are at as a learner. So the role as coach is the one that's underlined. And it's different depending on where the person is in their learning curve. Some people at some phases need a lot of direction. I'd like you to try it like this, do it this way, this way, this way. And we don't a lot of times like to do that because it feels like micromanagement. So you can say, hey, if this is the first time you've ever done this, I'd like you to try it my way. And the support aspect is really helping build that person's confidence. So instead of telling, you're moving to higher and higher support. Well, how would you do it? Yes, I agree with that. Yes, I agree with that. It may not be exactly as you've done it. But you can see that you don't go straight to delegating. You sort of have to figure out where the delegee is in the learning curve and change your coaching role. And I'm happy also to talk to you some more about that diagram. When you're coaching for improvement in a person's effectiveness, you want to look at their abilities, their motivations, and blind spots. So I'm going to talk just a bit about the blind spots. When you are working with an individual and you really, let's say you want them to take on the lead of a particular client. You want them to be the client leader. When that client calls you, you may need to stop and say, hey, you know what, I'd like to reschedule this for when Joe is available. Joe's the one that's working on your project, and he really knows a lot more about this. Or if Joe's in the office, hey, wait just a minute, let's get Joe here in the office, and you open your speakerphone. That type of involvement is important to both Joe and the client and yourself to show that you have faith and trust in that person to get the task done. You also need to structure the work of the other person. And this is a place where many of us may be weak, and it goes back to the accountability and the expectation. Make sure that there's enough structure in that so that the person can understand their work. And of course, you need to have a strong enough relationship so that you can work effectively together. Okay. So these are three things to think about. You should cover all three of them. And if you have a blind spot, you need to work on getting better in that particular area. The other thing that you need to watch out, excuse me, when you're delegating is when you're passing off an activity to the other person, actually, what I'm going to say is catch the ball. Are they just passively interested, like, yeah, they're not resisting the idea, they might try, but they're unwilling to actually do what it takes. What you want is level 5 absolute commitment, okay? And what I'm saying is ownership of the task that's been delegated. And at this level, the way we can describe absolute commitment is that person will do whatever it takes to create the desired result. They're going to use creativity, courage, asking people questions, dealing with problems, coming up with solutions, and overcoming obstacles. So you can let people know that one of your expectations is that there's absolute commitment. So we're just about ready to wrap up, and I want you to think about for a minute. We went through a lot of information. What's your personal takeaway today? And are you committed to change or to implement delegation behaviors in some way? So you've just invested 40 minutes or so, and I hope that you have something to work with. And I'm going to turn it back to Kevin now. Oops, Kevin, did I go too far? I didn't. Okay, it's all yours.
No, that's fine. That's a perfect lead-in, Sandy. Thank you for that. I just wanted to remind our members, or at least this is a perfect lead-in in that Sandy is going to be providing a workshop coming up in January, January the 7th through the 9th, and it's called the Leadership Mindset 2 workshop, Advanced Programs for Managers and Executives. It's a 2-day workshop in Columbus, Ohio, essentially teaching 3 essential skills around generating and communicating a shared vision for the future, communicating and leading change in your company, and the behaviors that you need to learn and be able to utilize to engender trust. And you can register for that through the Chief Executive Board's website, or when you receive this presentation today via link, as you'll notice where my mouse is at the moment, where it says brochure, you can visit the brochure there, or you can call us at this telephone number to learn more. And Sandy can also tell you a whole lot more about it than I can. We'll be hosting this, but Sandy will be the lead presenter for that workshop. And so I want to thank you, Sandy, at this point.
Thank you.
We will entertain a few questions from our audience, and I want to remind you that this is being recorded and will be sent back to everyone in the form of a link via email. Our first question comes from Travis. Travis asks, I've tried delegating a specific job to a trusted and valued employee. It's not being handled to my expectations. What is the best way to approach this situation so that I don't make my employee feel unappreciated? Sandy, would you like to take that one on?
Yeah, it's a great question. Well, first of all, congratulations for delegating, and second, for realizing that, hey, either my expectations of the weren't clear enough in terms of the outcome and the criteria for success, or feedback loops weren't quite as effective, or check-in time. So I would sit down with that person and say, hey, I'm still learning about being good at delegating. I think we missed the mark a little bit here, and here. And let's talk about where the breakdowns are. Was I unclear about the expectations and criteria? What could I have done that might have made this better so that in the future we can do better together with this? And what corrections can we make at this time? So instead of telling, I would ask a lot of questions, and then see if you need to give more direction and ask for permission. Direction being I may need to ask you to do this in a very particular way this time until you learn it, and then once you learn it, you can choose your own path to success. And then just check also about decision authority. Were you clear about decision authority? Was you hesitant? So I think you have a lot of questions to ask, and just look at it as a learning tool between the two of you. The great thing that you said is he's a very trusted employee and is very capable. So you should be able to get through this together. Thanks for your question.
The next question is from Douglas, and it says, how do I provide feedback without making them feel like they've failed?
Mm-hmm. Great question. Great question. I like to always start with, and it can sound sort of cliche, but what parts of the project did they do well? Okay. I'm going to ask everybody on the line, since this came up in both of this question and the last one, how often are you and that other person checking in? If you don't really know the other person very well, you might need a daily 5-minute stand-up, and I say stand-up so you don't spend too much time, check-in meeting. Check in with each other. How's it going? What's working? What's not working? I would check whether your expectations were clear to that person in terms of what the outcome would look like if they were successful, if they had the tools and resources. And so if you start with that kind of questioning behavior, you're showing a little bit of vulnerability. Maybe I didn't do it as well as I could have in terms of the delegation. Now, and then ask for permission to say, hey, you know what? I think we could do better here, and this is where we could do better. Is it okay if I give you some feedback? I think it's going to be important. If the person says no, then they're not the person you want to delegate to in the future. They have to be able to receive feedback. But I think if you're gentle in your tone and you're honest with the facts and you're a little bit vulnerable, you'll be successful. Next question.
Okay. The next one comes from Kathy, and I'm not quite sure, Sandy, but I think she's inquiring about the reporting systems 5 on Fridays 5.
Yeah, let me just, Here's what I don't want you to do. I don't want you to wake up in the middle of the night and wonder, oh my gosh, I delegated that, did it get done? You want to hear back, and you want to train the person you're delegating to let you know what progress they have made. And you want very regular check-ins with them until you're sure you can trust them, okay? That may be daily 5 minutes. 5 on Friday at 5, let's say you have a longer-term activity, and you meet regularly with this person on Monday morning to review their next steps in their responsibility. Before they go home on Friday, they give you 5 brief bullets bringing you up to date on what they've achieved. Or you may want, you know, 2 minutes before they go home every day, 2 bullets of what they accomplished today so that you know whether you need to talk to them in the morning. But create a system where they are reporting back to you, and as soon as if they should miss that report back, you need to get on it and get back to them and say, hey, you know what, that's important, and the reason it's important that you let me know is so I don't wake up in the middle of the night and waste sleep. Worst of all, our worst behaviors when we don't know what's going on is we jump in and we start doing it ourselves, and we completely confuse the other person as to whose responsibility it is. So hopefully that makes sense. Did it make sense to you, Kevin?
Absolutely. Thank you, Sandy. And we have one final question from Arthur that says, in respect to retaining my 20-somethings, would you elaborate on the idea that free time is currency and how that has been used effectively as incentive? Is this referring to additional vacation time or rather flexible working hours?
I would say it's any and all of the above. What the current generation doesn't want to be a slave to work. Now, you know, it's not real easy to figure this out, but I can tell you from what I see from some of my daughter's actually working on the West Coast right now, so I can see some of the activities that are going on in the Googles and the Hulas and some of these organizations where the kids actually are working 15 hours a day. But they have, once a quarter, they'll have a whole day play day where everybody goes to the beach and plays volleyball, and they have lobster bakes, and they do stuff like that. So there's fun activities, 1. 2 is that if they have families in particular, that there is flexible work hours and that they can attend their children's events, and they have flexibility and I'm going to emphasize as long as they still get their work done on time. So free time is their currency. They want time to live their lives and enjoy it. And again, I got to say, as a boomer, I think boomers blew it on that one. I think we became workaholics, a lot of us. And, you know, you do need to enjoy your life. You do need to take vacation. So I would say, you know, each person is a little bit different. I'm not saying additional vacation time, but, you know, you might accelerate your loyalty vacation time. If you only give 1 week the first year, you might go ahead and get 2 weeks the second year. And if you can go farther than that, that's important to people. And then structure the works so that they can take the time off. I can't tell you how many people feel like, hey, we're shorthanded. I can't even take time off. So make sure that people are getting long weekends occasionally and coach them on that. Coach them and encourage them to take the time that they need. Thank you all so much. Thank you, Kevin. Is there anything else before we wrap up?
No, I think that's it. I'd like to thank you, our presenter, Sandy Blaha of Sandy Blaha Performance Consulting. Please go and visit her website or give her a call. The webinar was hosted today by Chief Executive Boards, and I invite you to visit our website and for additional insights and upcoming events as well. Or you can just call me at the numbers that you'll see on the screen here. I hope you found this helpful, and I invite you to please join us for future webinars. We look forward to speaking with you regarding future engagements with Chief Executive Boards and Sandy Blaha Performance Consulting as well in the future. And I want to wish all of you a great week ahead. Thank you and farewell. This concludes our webinar.
Bye-bye.